Hey everybody, and welcome back to another max velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be going over a massive severe weather event that will take place next week across the United States. In addition to that, a pretty hefty winter storm will be impacting a large chunk of the country. I'll give you the latest breakdown on both of these situations and more in this forecast. Let's first begin with what's happening across the United States today, beginning with the southeast United States, which is actually where there's already a severe weather event ongoing today for a couple of tornadoes down in Florida and southern Georgia. This is all to blame because of a low pressure system that has just developed in the Gulf of Mexico. This will actually bring some flooding rains across the southeast United States over the next 24 hours, and even a little bit of snowfall for those in Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia. On the other hand, dry air is dominating most of the central United States, and this will continue for the next few days until we have a couple of big weather events that'll impact the United States going into mid next week. Now, over the next several days, the low-level jet will be strong in some areas. Now, for those that are not familiar with the low-level jet, this essentially equivalates to a higher tornado threat. So going into tonight into tomorrow morning, the low-level jet will actually be fairly strong back down in Florida, where you see those yellow colors associated with that low-pressure system that we're seeing developing down in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, going into early next week is when we'll watch another low-pressure system develop over the Central Plains. This one actually will not be as strong as it looks. There's a lot of yellow on the map, but again, it's not going to be too bad in terms of a tornado threat for Tuesday due to a low instability value. But going into Thursday is when another low pressure system will develop in the Central Plains. This one will be very concerning as it could bring essentially any type of threat of severe weather as we go into Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Values upwards of 80 knots for a low level jet. That is very fast, and that could very well lead to the potential for a rapidly intensifying tornado threat as we go into Wednesday and Thursday. But first, beginning with tonight, there is a slight risk of severe weather for those in northern Florida, and also for those in Orlando, Tampa, and near Cape Canaveral. A marginal threat of severe weather exists for the next few hours. That is for a low tornado threat for the rest of tonight. So as we take you hour by hour, a few showers and storms will continue tonight. This will be a fairly scattered event, but we probably will not see a huge tornado threat for the rest of tonight. Once we go into tomorrow morning, that is when this low pressure system moves off to the north and east, bringing the potential for some flash flooding along with even some snowfall back up in areas like North Carolina. And you can see the purples popping up as we go into early tomorrow morning. That is where we might see a little bit of a cumulative snowfall in those higher elevations. But overall, it will not be a huge event in terms of snowfall, but there will be a little bit out there. So for those in western North Carolina or even in Virginia, overall snowfall will actually be pretty decent. We'll be talking upwards of a coating to a few inches of snow. That'll extend all the way back from almost Washington, D.C., all the way back through eastern sections of Tennessee. So a nice event overall for some snow if you're looking forward to a little bit of snow, because a lot of areas over there have not seen snow over the past few months. Now, next week is when things get very interesting. That very concerning trough as we go into Wednesday and Thursday is likely going to bring an enhanced threat of severe weather for those in the southern plains all the way back through the Dixie Valley. And this threat will extend as far north as areas like Ohio and southern Michigan. It is a very large area that we're watching next week for severe weather. But first, beginning with Wednesday, there is currently a slight risk of severe weather. This goes from DFW all the way back through areas in Tennessee. So this will be primarily for Wednesday night, and eventually into Thursday, the slight risk extends massively. I mean, this is one of the biggest slight risks of severe weather that I've seen on a day 6 outlook in a long time. So for Thursday, this slight risk goes from areas in the Dixie Valley, and that does include areas that actually in the Panhandle of Florida, all the way back through areas in Indiana and southwest sections of Ohio. Now, there will likely be a marginal threat. I know this is a pretty long-term forecast, so things will change a little bit, but I wouldn't rule out a marginal threat going as far north as areas like Michigan or even into Ohio because of this setup that we have. I mean, the instability will be reaching as far north as areas in southern Michigan. It is a very, very dangerous event that we're going to be watching next week unfold. So we'll be keeping updated again with the latest as we get closer. But first, beginning with Monday and Tuesday, again, high pressure system will be really dominant across the eastern half of the United States. That'll be centered over Florida. So we'll be watching a low pressure system develop over the Rocky Mountains late Monday night into Tuesday. This low pressure system might bring some isolated severe weather in areas like Texas, maybe Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, but it's a low threat for right now, so don't be too concerned about Tuesday, but there might be a few storms out there that might be severe. Also going to Wednesday morning, a little winter storm may develop with that low pressure system back into the northern plains. Again, this shouldn't dump too much snow, but maybe a few inches of snow may come out of that. Eventually going into Thursday, though, is when this next low pressure system will really rapidly intensify over the central and southern plains. Here's your low pressure system here. We'll have snow on the northern and western side of the low pressure system. Meanwhile, there will be a chance for severe weather from Texas all the way back through the Dixie Valley, and this low pressure system will be fairly quick moving. So by Thursday morning, this low will be all the way back into areas like Missouri and as well as into Iowa. So there will likely be a winter storm out of this, but it will be quick moving. So it will not be dumping several feet of snow, but it will be dumping several inches of snow along its path, which we might see a few isolated areas near a foot. But overall, the general gist of that winter storm will likely be a few inches. Then eventually going to Thursday morning, we'll have some severe weather ongoing. Again, this could go as far north as southern Michigan. I wouldn't rule it out by any means at this point, just due to how much moisture will be surging up to the north with this strong low pressure system. By Thursday afternoon and evening, the main severe weather event will be across areas in the Dixie Valley, and eventually going into Friday morning is when that low pressure system races off to the north and east, and then high pressure will dominate the United States as we go into next weekend. You may be wondering, what are the ingredients that are actually going into this event? Well, the instability for Tuesday, which is that first low pressure system that I mentioned that might bring some isolated severe weather, the European model is estimating between 0 to maybe 300 joules per kilogram of energy for these supercell thunderstorms that might develop. That's really not much of anything, so supercells will struggle to develop in this atmosphere. But once we go into Wednesday night into Thursday, the southerly winds will surge with a ton of moisture, along with strong daylight heating will lead to the potential for some pretty significant severe weather Wednesday night through Thursday. That instability will get upwards of 2,000 to 3,000 joules per kilogram, which is a very high value, and that very well could lead to some pretty significant severe weather. Once we go into Thursday, for those across areas from Michigan all the way back through the Dixie Valley, I mentioned that the instability will be surging up to the north. We'll be talking upwards of 500 joules per kilogram back into areas like Ohio and even southern Michigan, which it isn't a high value, but it is enough for maybe a little bit of severe weather. So something to really watch as we go into next week. Definitely some crazy stuff that'll be unfolding with this low pressure system. Now, a very early estimate on snowfall totals from that possible winter storm. I will not get into too specific on details with this because things will change as we get closer. But for right now, this is the track that the European model has been taking the main bulk of that snow on. So essentially from Colorado all the way back through Wisconsin, with some of these pockets maybe upwards of a foot of snow. But overall, it will likely be just several inches of snow since this will be such a quickly moving low pressure system. And over the next 7 days, there will be a ton of rain across the United States. Almost everybody will see some sort of rainfall, which is good news for those that are in need of rain this time of the year. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting.